Hello, I'm Chip Jones, and I'd like to welcome you to our home, Okarga Farms, here in the northeast corner of Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa, where we have been creating a mini homestead and where we're looking to share a little bit of that homestead as we expand with you. We're located on 16 acres, which was once just farmlands used for planting, and now we have developed it into our home, farm, and gardens. Our land is actually situated on what was originally part of Creek Indian Territory, which was divided up in 50-acre plots to members of the Creek Indian tribe. One of the things that we're hoping to do is kind of share our experiences as we learn from the trials and tribulations here of living in the prairie. And hopefully these videos will be a way that we can show you and share with you some of the things that we're doing and keep you with us along the way. So 7 years ago, we found this property, and the house was in quite a state of disrepair. It actually had been sitting abandoned for the last few months. But driving up on the property, we could see immediately that there was some interest and there was hope for this property. It sits at the end of a gravel road where no one really knows that there's anything even back here. And when we saw the property, we could tell that it had good bones, it had good feel, and it certainly spoke to us. Although it's not completed, the entrance here to the farm certainly looks very, very different. It actually was almost completely grown over. All that existed was the wall, a tiny little trail of tracks, solid grass and weeds for as far as you could see. So we've added some fun plants such as more Green Mountain boxwood, Peggy Martin roses, and Alaskan cedar to soften the hardscape of the brick. These concrete urns from unique stone add a bit of whimsy and fun to the front entrance as well. So this certainly is a project that is still in the making, but certainly looks much better than it did in the beginning. The road almost didn't exist at all. It had almost completely grown over, but we added chat for the bottom layer and then pea gravel to soften the road and actually to match the coloring of the house as well. We also redirected the drive so that it had a little bit more of an engaging and graceful way of entering. It was at one time almost a straight shot from the gate up to the house, lacking any sense of interest. That's certainly something we worked on as we redirected the drive. And then, of course, probably the next thing that made the largest impression was this grand pecan tree, which has been here many years before us and certainly has weathered many storms, just like the one this last June. But if it can weather anything in Oklahoma, we know we certainly can as well. And we hope to preserve and protect it for many years to come. So I really still remember the first day that we came to the property and we drove up to the brick wall, the weeds, which were absolutely everywhere, and the large pecan tree. It was like at that moment, I knew this property had something. I didn't know what, but it immediately spoke to me. As we meandered down the path, which was kind of the path to unknown because you could not see anything about the house and the property until you arrived all the way up to the house. So this all used to be one of those areas that was completely covered with pear trees, and we opened that up to get rid of all the kind of scrubby type of trees, but we've been slowly adding back more select trees to make it into a neat type of grove. We're surrounded by a 180-acre farm, and included in that farm is a Creek Indian cemetery, which we're still learning a lot about, but this used to be a Muskogee Creek community known as Springtown. Springtown was its own incorporated area existed along Adams Creek until, from what we understand, a bad case of malaria came through and actually wiped out a lot of the inhabitants, pushing the woes that remained back into Tulsa. Here we have another small grove of pecan tree, pear, and then we have, we've started a small quince garden. So this area has a lot of history, especially with the Creek Indians, and that's something we certainly are interested in learning more about, since they were the ones who first had this property. And a lot of neat information once you go in to look at the deeds of the land, all of the names who have held this property, you can start to find out more and more about the history, not of just this area, but of the entire state of Oklahoma. Coming from back east, where history, it seems to run much longer, Oklahoma is one of the youngest states in the Union. It was the 48th state for the United States, so it doesn't hold as much long written history as many of the other states around the country. So one of the things coming here is we do want to learn about where we live, learn about who lived before us, and hopefully share some of that information with you along the way. The house actually had vines growing in through the windows. When we walked in, it was kind of a moment of despair. I didn't know if we would be really ready for this adventure or not. But again, that voice inside, I think of both of us, said, this is the place for you. I loved the scale of the features in the house, and I tried to look beyond the vines growing through the windows to see what it could be. So I guess I felt rather comfortable in looking at a house that was in quite a state, but knowing what it could be, because I do come from a background of interior design. I've worked with gardens and gardening design, and also I've been the editor of a home and lifestyle magazine. So I've seen so many other stories where desolate and kind of wrecked properties turn into the beautiful swan in the end. And this property certainly had that beginning steps where I knew it had plenty of potential to become our dream home. So after living here for a year and trying to get a feel for the house and let the property tell us what should be done, we undertook several stages of remodeling and trying to bring just the basics back to the life. New siding, windows, roof, working to get just the exterior back to a normal state took some time. We also ran into a lot of construction issues during the COVID years and have worked through that as well. Part of the development has been the farm and the gardens, which have kind of come secondary, but now we're hoping to take that all the way to being the primary. One of the things that has been a surprise to us is how much we've been able to turn this in kind of our little Garden of Eden. You'll notice as you look around, we've got the place just brimming with blooms and plants and flowers, but there is kind of a point behind that because we actually manage a garden center here in Green Country, and certainly we like to show off a lot of the product that we grow and give people inspiration so that they have some ideas when they come to the nursery what they might find. So I'm going to walk you around, give you a little tour, and show you some of the things that we've done over the last 7 years, and hopefully give you a little inspiration to create your own little blooming Garden of Eden as well. So as you look around, one of the things that we did here at the house is we've done some major improvements, such as adding new windows, adding new siding, a new roof, and then we actually changed the color. We did a Romabio lime wash paint over the stone exterior, and changed the accent colors to actually it's a dark chocolate brown. We love having this kind of nice, vibrant contrast with all the plants. I think it makes the plants stand out and pop against such a stark and bright exterior color. And another thing that we wanted to do was kind of create a nice landing spot. When we found this home, there was kind of a partial sidewalk that came up to this area, and it just kind of ended abruptly into the house. There was nothing welcoming about it. So another thing that we did is we added this landing and added these 4 large containers for adding emphasis and importance to the entry. Certainly when you pull up to this house now, you know exactly where the front door is and where you should go to make your grand entrance into the home. Some of the other fun features that we've added is the arbor above the front door so that we could add vines to kind of soften the space as well. And this is a purple hyacinth bean vine. It's an annual vine that it grows every year, but it is such low maintenance. It certainly is something we look forward to every year. And just for fall, we've added more pumpkins, mums, and corn stalks to show you some of the product that we carry out at the nursery that we work for. As you come down the sidewalk, Bitsy is laid out here beside the new matrix orange pansies, which are out this year. Also, you'll find orange celosia, just an extra punch of color. We haven't taken out a lot of our plantings just yet. A lot of these plantings, such as the salvia, they're going to last until the first frost comes along. So we leave them in so that we can enjoy them as long as possible. And as you notice today, even though it's bright and sunny, it's starting to turn a little bit cool, and all the butterflies and pollinators are certainly flying around all of the blooms that you see up by the house. So one of the most important and simple things you can do is add foundation plantings to your home. They don't have to be elaborate. They can be fairly simple. Most of ours are boxwood. We use a Green Mountain boxwood variety. And then another great plant to use as a foundation planting to actually add height and kind of soften the height of the structure are trees such as blue Atlas cedars and Nellie Stevens hollies. You'll find those punctuated throughout the landscape and certainly are plants that do well here in our Zone 7A garden. We've worked really hard to do foundation plantings and gardens right around the home, but what we're wanting to share with you is now as we take it to the next step, is we start making more specific gardens for specific uses and adding to the overall ambiance of the property. Kind of what we're looking to do in the next chapter of the gardens is expand, but yet make them very intimate and kind of creating some garden rooms and some more entertaining spaces as you go throughout the property. We love having the open space, but yet one of the things it now lacks is a little bit of coziness. So we want to bring in a few more comfortable spaces. Number one, to kind of help with the weather. Creating wind blocks, creating some shade will help us to enjoy the outside more times of the year. So one of the unique things we had a challenge with is you could see all the way from the house to the driveway without any obstruction. So we wanted to create a little bit of privacy and also create a little bit of beauty as you came up to the house. So we created these 2 berms, which serve both of those purposes. They add a little extra privacy, and they are also a place where we can add color, both perennial color and annual color, to give visitors a feel for what they're going to find once they arrive up at the home. The berms, of course, came with their own set of challenges. This is the first location where we discovered just how brutal the wind in Oklahoma can be. This berm faces south, and we take the hardest, most direct wind from that direction. We certainly learned how to garden in a different way and use certain plants that we weren't going to use in the beginning because they are plants that can survive the cold, harsh winds of the wintertime. By adding statues, bird baths, and birdhouses along the way, We've been working to bring back wildlife because this property basically had no wildlife that would visit. One of the next stages we took on was building the new pond out front. At one time, it was basically covered with overgrown pear trees, which were first of all bulldozed and then burned. And then we began digging on our own the foundation for the pond. Over the next year, it began to take shape, and before long, the sides were up, the pond was filled, and wildlife began to return to the property. I think one of my most favorite projects that we have done here at the farm is we built this pond, and it certainly is something that we're not quite finished with just yet. We have a few surprises along the way, but it is something that seems to change just every few days. With the morning, watching the sun come up on the east side, the mist rise from the pond, actually starting your day that way is such a fantastic way to start. Then coming in at the end of the day and seeing the sunset to the west is a totally different feel and something we look forward to. This certainly is a project that I see changing and growing as we learn to enjoy it more and more every day. Once establishing the pond, I was ready for the next garden to go in. So we added the butterfly garden to the rear of the house. I was ready for much more color and a path to lead us from one side of the property to the other. But of course, I had to add plants and flowers along the way to turn it into a very colorful and vibrant garden. This garden has turned out to be one of my favorites. It changes almost daily, but certainly has a major change in seasonal color as we go throughout the year. As opposed to the front, which is more evergreen and stationary, the back has a lot of seasonal color change as it brings in many different types of wildlife throughout the year. Once that garden came to life, we started to add arbors. It needed structure, it needed some height in the garden. So we added these vertical structures to give more height, interest, and also to bring color up and off the ground. Now on the property we have two structures, one that leads to the back lawn and one that leads to the future shade garden on the west side of the house. As you can see beyond the arbors, there's plenty of room for more development and more fun things to come. But for now, we're just enjoying having something new, fun, and different to look at from our own design. Of course, I can't forget about the barns and the chicken house that has been built as well. So because our farm has grown into alpacas, horses, goats, chickens, and even an Angora rabbit, we've had to add more structures to the property. We designed the structures to kind of stand out from the house, but yet blend to the overall property. And I can't forget about Itsy Bitsy. Bitsy came into our lives 3 years ago when Brian's mother passed away, and she moved to Oklahoma just as we had moved to Oklahoma. Now Bitsy has become my shadow, and I can't go anywhere without her. So I guess you can tell I have a little bit of a thing for gardening. And I hope that you enjoyed this little mini tour as I begin to share my garden, home, and farm with you. And I hope in the many seasons to come, you'll stick around and you'll be able to see it grow and develop into the garden that I hope it will be. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and follow me, the Preppy Gardener.